Is anyone there? Oh, hi.
So first off, I'm going to say that I actually hate YouTube. I really do. But every once in a while, it's kind of useful for, random vlogging, which is what this Pixel Prattling series is going to be all about. I mean, we generally get orders of magnitude more views through our other channels such as Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever, than we do on YouTube, but it is what it is. In any case, here we go. This video is coming up is going to be not so much a diss track as much as it may suggest to be, but more sort of like a recalling of my side of events and my view on the players involved. Rational standard. Where to begin? Well, actually, I know precisely where to begin. Before I deep dive into this, I'm gonna give the credit where credit's due, in that they actually let Conscious Caracal write on their platform in his response, which I thought was rather brilliant, but I mean, you already knew that. So, why am I talking about Rational Standard? Well, for starters, one of the most ironic things about the Rational Standard is that they brought myself and my longtime rival, the Goose, together. And I think that the best encapsulation of their quote-unquote growth and evolution is one tweet pictured here by good old Goose himself, where he basically sums it up as Rational Standard 2019, decent publication. Rational Standard 2021, Conscious Caracal reply guy. And that is unironic as hell. Honestly, it's a big yikes. So, where did this start? Well, for me, it started when I jumped in, I think, on one of their tweets. It had to do with something about open borders and immigration, and honestly, that's probably my most unlibertarian standpoint, is that I'm not a fan of open borders in terms of libertarianism. And I don't just mean it in the Rothbardian sense, although, let's be honest, I mean, not Rothbardian, Milton Friedman sense, where he says basically, without abolishing the welfare state, open borders aren't possible. Which, I mean, many libertarians today, including the much of the mainstream Libertarian Party in the US, are not even yielding to. They're not even yielding to destroy their welfare state. They're just straight up saying basically no borders at all, which, because it doesn't technically contravene the non-aggression principle, which technically is true. However, as you grow up and go into the real world and experience reality, you realize that there's a hell of a lot of ways one could contravene or otherwise sidestep the non-aggression principle and still do harm, either intentionally or unintentionally, to somebody, or otherwise screw them over. Now, I'm not saying that the non-aggression principle should be thrown out. In fact, I still think it's a great guiding principle. I'm just saying that a lot of libertarians out there, especially on Twitter, need to wake up to the fact that there's a hell of a lot of ways people can step around it and still screw you over. So, I'm not a huge fan of open borders. I'm a fan of streamlining the immigration system. I'm a fan of reviewing the immigration system. But open borders? Hell no. I just think, think, libertarians, think. What happens to your libertarian paradise when, the hordes of non-libertarians have filled up your utopia, your absolute wonderful land, and then they decide, let's enforce our ideology by the ballot or by the bullet. But back to rational standards. So we were on this discussion, and basically, I suggested that being open borders is not exactly the no harm that you thought it was. And we went back and forth. One of the funniest parts is that anyone who's been on my channel, or rather on my Twitter page, knows that I'm mostly there for shit posting. And at some point, they kind of jumped in and they're like, "You being unprofessional." And it makes me think of that crying Wojak with like a smirk mask over it, where I'm like, "Bro, have you seen my podcast? Have you seen my Twitter page?" But anyway, so in the process of this exchange, I basically posted them a link to, well, actually two journals from two publications from the Journal of Libertarian Science. One which was for the case for better trade and restricted immigration, and the other which flat out argues that it's not necessarily a default libertarian principle to be open borders. Both are well-reviewed articles, once again published in the Journal of Libertarian Sciences. Sick irony. Anyway, moving along, after I posted those, the argument eventually devolved, as all Twitter shit does. But I thought that was the end of it, until some dude named Nicholas Wood Smith went in on communitarianism, and once again, my boy Conscious Caracal came to the rescue and posted quite a great reply on their own platform to them. Links should be below if I feel like actually adding them. But seriously, check out Conscious Caracal's reply. In the end, that was the last sort of, I guess, nail in the coffin of this particular saga, although knowing Rational Standard, I can only assume they'll be posting some lolbert stuff pretty soon. Once again, there's a big difference between being a libertarian and a lolbertarian. Ultimately, they came to the table and offered the olive branch, and they basically added Conscious Caracal and I think it was Paratus, and said, let's work together. We all know who's opposing freedom, blah 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 blah. And it's a bunch of them with their icons, along with Free Market Foundation and the sorry, I almost threw up because I thought of them, and the IRR, a pit of neoliberal snakes whom I despise. And it's them as the Ultramarines fighting in a Warhammer 40k situation. Now, just a side sort of criticism of this, if you're gonna post cringe like this, at least try harder. Seriously, the Ultramarines, and yes, I have an issue with the Ultramarines, because first of all, when it comes to Space Marines as a faction in Warhammer 40k, there are only two correct options. They are the Space Wolves, and I do mean the Space Wolves before Games Workshop turned them into giant space furries, when before they were just cool space Vikings, and the Salamanders, because you gotta love any chapter whose solution to a situation is burn it more fire. Plus, they're just bro tier in the lore to all the forces of the Imperium and civilians, and you gotta love that. Not to mention the fact that they generally stick it to the Inquisition, which sucks ass. But the other reason I hate the Ultramarines is, well, they're just a giant LARP. Now, each faction in each chapter in the whole Space Marines group is a giant LARP of some sort, just as I discussed with the Ultramarines and with the Space Wolves and the Salamanders. But the Ultramarines are a LARP of the Roman Legion. Now, why is that lame? Because the Imperium of Man itself is already a LARP of the Roman Legion. So you've got a LARP of the Roman Legion within a LARP of the Roman Legion. Add to that the fact that, well, it's pretty obvious that many of the storyline shot callers have a hard-on for the Ultramarines, with balls bluer than in the state of New York. So, anytime they win essentially because they're the Ultramarines. It's never because they actually try or go through any sort of real tribulation. And that's why I hate the Ultramarines. If you play Ultramarines, you might as well just say, I'm a boring baby and I want to choose a faction who is favored by the storyline writers. Now, certain hosts of a certain Man Patriot podcast may disagree with my analysis, but they're just fucking wrong. all in all, I guess I just have to say with this whole rational standard saga is that one of the biggest issues with the rational standard is that, honestly, they've just devolved over the years, and I can tell you why. Are you ready, kids? Are you ready? Come up. Come on close. I'll whisper it in your ear. Neoliberalism. That's right. Fucking neoliberalism. The source of all our problems. In any case, that's about all I got for this episode of Pixel Prattlings. I hope you lot enjoy your day, and yeah, I'm gonna enjoy my Florida summer. I'll see you next time. Peace.
Put your hand